what's the distance by which you can kick and still get it in, right? And so this one here, Monetize Your Moment, this is the promotion sheet, which first of all talks about how all things come down in flow to two things, which is all about good plumbing. It's all about basically processes that create flow, which should all be automated, or processes which maintain flow, which should all be automated or outsourced, or projects that create flow, like in a road project, a new road. And what we're talking about here is you've got what is effectively a promotion, which is going to lift you in who you are and with the money you can be making down the road of who you're going to be, right? So with that happening, this actually has got a structure to it where it starts with what's the name of the promotion, who's leading it. Just as a background to this, there's nothing I do in any of my businesses in any sort whatsoever that isn't part of a promotion, which means there's no one just doing activity, like being busy building a website or something. If we're ever doing something like building a website, it's specifically to deliver to an outcome on a promotion which is going to make a certain amount of money and to deliver a certain amount of value in a certain time period. And because we're always doing that, everything always creates flow and everything always makes money. And you're never spending lots and lots of time doing something where someone said, well, you just spent like the day on something and some activity. How much did you get paid for that? If you have no answer for that, you can't tell, it means it's not a promotion. If you can tell, well, you know, it's like, okay, I'm putting 5 days of my time into something where I've worked out, if I can make this work, I'll be making $20,000 from this project that I'm doing right now, this promotion I'm doing at the moment. That's 5 days of my time. So if someone came to me and said, Roger, you just spent a day working on that. How much are you earning from that? I'll say, well, I'm putting 5 days in total into it. I've set the time aside. We've done this enough times to believe that we'll make $20,000 out the back end of it. That means I just got paid $4,000 for today. Yeah, but show me the money. No, you're not going to see the money today. You're going to see it when the promotion finishes, which is going to be when we run that event or when we launch that product, and that'll be on the 20th of June. Then you'll see the money, and I'll be collecting that because it's already built into the agreement. I'll get that money. So yeah, it'll be coming back, but I know what my time was worth today. Very clear. Someone goes, okay, then I guess you know where you're at and what you're doing. Now, do I know I'm going to be right? Maybe I won't make the money. That's the whole point about anticipation. The more I master something, the more I'm going to actually have a number which is going to be real, and the more people are going to come and want to come on the journey as well, and the more, most importantly, they're willing to wait until later to get paid as well. But if you've got no experience doing this, you can't get people to come with you on a journey, maybe getting paid later, because they're thinking this person has no idea whether he's going to get paid or not, let them know where I'm going to get paid or not, so they won't do it. But the moment you say, here's how it's going to work, this is how Richard Branson can say, I'm going to take spaceships and send them up into space, the first person ever to do it, and anyone who wants to be part of this, pay me $200,000. Let me share a story, because this happened at Necker Island like 2 weeks ago, and I shared it with some of you on the partner meeting. He said that, and he said, I want 200 people to do this, and he's actually had to change his timing a couple of times because of this, because it's a bit more complicated sending a rocket up the ship than you might, or a rocket up to space than you might think. So when we were all together and we were having a drink in Necker Island, one of the guys just kind of teased him on it, and he was like, oh, Richard, it's still going to be, when's the first rocket going up? Is it, what, a year from now? Because like, he said for the last 3 years, it's going to be a year from now, right? So like, is it going to be a year from now? And Richard's like, yeah, probably, I don't know. It's like, they're working on it. And everyone like laughed. And he's like saying, but it's a real pain, because I've just had the guys around and like, they're putting the price up at the end of the month, this kind of stuff, and I wasn't happy about that. And we're like, oh, really? He goes, yeah, like at the end of the month, it's going up to $300,000. From $200,000, they're putting up to $300,000. He still hasn't sent anyone up yet. I'm like, why are they putting up so much? Oh, there's over 500 people now that have signed up and paid. 500 people, 200,000, that's $100 million he's got sitting in the bank right now. 100 million on people saying, we believe in you, Richard. Keep up the good work. And he's like, yeah, so now there's like all this money, and they're like thinking it's too cheap at the moment, so we've got to put it up to 300,000. But like I said to them, that's too expensive, make it 250. And we said, oh, and you're the boss, so they went with that. He said, well, they're the money guys, and they're really the boss, so it's not really up to me yet, but frankly, I guess for me, if I can find a couple more people that are willing to come on at 250, I can go back, prove that. So anyone here want to do it? 4 people signed up on the spot to do it. Made $1 million right then in a drinks conversation, just on the basis that he was just having that conversation. That's how easy money is when you're so certain you're going to get stuff done. And when other people are so certain you're going to get stuff done as well, right? So all this stuff here is all about anticipation. It's about testing how good is your guess at what's going to happen next. And the more you can actually say, I know exactly how to make $10, I know exactly how to make $1 million, the more people are going to be willing to come on the journey with you, and it allows you to then have a much bigger canvas to play the game in life as well. So in your case, we've got this here, which is a structure. What's the name of the promotion? Who's leading the promotion? Which at this point we'll say is you, all right? So at yellow level, you'd be the one leading it. What's the purpose of it? You can go through this, which is there's a financial purpose, going to make $2,000. There's going to be some development purpose. I might have a website at the end of it. I might have a partnership at the end of it. There's going to be some learning objectives. I'm going to learn how much are people willing to pay to come along for something in some way. But these are all things you design ahead of time is going to be your learning and things you're going to get out of it. And then from there, who's the team members? What are the milestones you're going to create so that you know what they're going to look like? And most importantly, this one here, the promotion strategy, what are you going to be offering in a way that's going to be irresistible to others? Where's it going to come from? Just fine-tuning this allows anyone to look very quickly at where you're at and what you need to change. And I think John went through this the other day where you actually then are able to then say, here's how I'm going to measure the dance between myself and the market, right? I'm going to see if I invite how many people come along, even before I tell them the price. I want to see when they come along and I tell them the price, how many drop out. I want to see if I change the price to another price, would I get more people coming on board? I mean, this is all test and measure where you're saying, here's what I think will happen. Is that actually what happens or not? And you're constantly testing your future self. How accurate is this person or not, right? And it becomes a game where the better you get at this, at green level, to John's question, well, how do you know someone who's green level? Green level, they're asking this of their team the whole time. So when I have my conversations with my teams, and so you can see what green level looks like, one promotion, we'll look at something like, let's see, let me get, here we go. I'll get a team charter up. Okay, so a team charter is basically the difference of yellow level, which is one flight path. Think of this like a flight path. Green level is when it becomes an entire flight schedule because you've turned from being the plane to the airport, right? So green level is when you just got planes coming and going the whole time, where basically every one of the different people in any of my teams have got a promotion. You know, here's Simone. Simone's got Entrepreneur Institute as a promotion. She's also got iLAB. This in itself is a promotion. We had a beginning which didn't start on the first day of iLAB. It started in March when we said, who wants to come to iLAB? And so each of these then actually has within it like Genius Test we're launching, right? So it's a promotion and it's free, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have goals. It's got goals on what's going to happen on social media. It's got goals on what online sales will happen off the back end of it, where we're going to be generating $30,000 to $60,000 in sales off the back of it per month, and it's a free product. But if we were just doing a free product without thinking this through, then it's like, who's going to pay for the development? This way, it all gets paid for and the team gets paid for because we know the money's going to come and we've got guesswork as to what we think will happen with it. And this is basically the tool by which I want to build my brand. So I have my own website being revamped. I have all these things happening, but it wasn't me sitting down thinking, I think I need to revamp my website. It's like, what's the promotion we're running that's going to make money that will support an entire team getting in place to get paid out of the money we're going to make all this stuff happen. So I'm never having to fund anything. It's always getting funded from the future of what we're doing, which means that there's no limit to what you can do because most of us are limited by resources we have today, as opposed to realizing if that isn't your limit, what would you actually do? The only way to do that is have promotions where you're predicting how much money you'll make and you're getting good at it and it funds everything you're doing, and then there's then the milestones and so on. So this is what one promotion plan looks like, and you'll see that in here for this quarter, because this is basically for quarter 2, we have a total of 10 promotion plans in total, and all my different teams in different areas are all involved in one or another, and they're all very clear on what their accountabilities are. So whatever it is they're doing, they're focused at it with the beginning and end. So no one gets brownie points for just showing up for work and just being busy. Everyone has got an outcome that they're creating and what they're doing as well, right? So this, all the things I'm telling you in terms of how to structure this is not just kind of like theory. It's how I run everything I do. And in my experience, anyone out there who's really driving things, whether it's property developments or whether it's sending people up to space, they do it the same way too, right? By actually having a plan for the future. So Emma, coming back to you, you've got basically a promotion where you've got yourself and your identity, which is their Big Cat Conservation, where you are using this to launch your spots change.
Changing spots?
Changing or changing? Changing.
Changing spots.
Changing spots, right? So let's call that your promotion, right?
Yes.
And what's the money you're going to make out of it?
Well, I feel like $2,000 is something uncomfortable.
Okay.
It's a small amount, yeah.
And what are people going to be getting for that?
Well, today I'll be emailing Rihanna, who's the founder of the organisation, and asking, or her team, and working out what's a specific measurable goal that $2,000 can achieve.
Okay.
So that at least the people have a way of measuring what the money is actually going towards. So whether that be a new part of an enclosure or... Oh,
so you don't at this moment know, when you raise that money, is this like a fundraising?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to do it as a fundraising?
Yes.
And you're not sure where that money's going to go at the moment to help them out, right?
Yes, yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know that they need lots of money for lots of different things, but I thought if we can start with a small thing. So my goal with this is to create a branding and also create a relationship with these people in South Africa. So, yeah, that's the main thing.
And have you ever met them before?
No, but I've had a Skype conversation with...
What's their website?
cheetahexperience.com. And a friend of my mum's, Sandra, who's a vet from Adelaide, she's been volunteering there. I had a Skype conversation with her, and she said, yeah, you should definitely contact her. They need this, this and this. This is how their business runs. These are their limitations. This is where they want to go. So she said, you know, they're very accessible and it's definitely something that you could start with. So
here it is.
I'll be contacting them today. Yeah, so they basically run solely off volunteers at the moment. So they have a cheetah breeding program. They have 12 breeding cheetahs, which are not accessible to the public, and then they also create awareness for the cause with animals that, you know, people can go and volunteer and feed them and stay there. And
Yeah. So you've got a volunteer program. Would you like to go there?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I thought that she's going back there in August, September. And I thought, what a perfect time. I could go and actually take photos of what we've achieved and
in August, September time?
Start of September, I think. I've got to confirm what dates.
So, anyone here have any thoughts? If the goal is to raise $2,000, is this $2,000 for them or for you?
For them.
Okay, how many of you think that it would be a good idea that the $2,000 goes to Emma instead of to them? That would be a good idea, right? Because then we're actually learning something about how to make some money.
Okay, yeah.
How about if you do that and at the same time you actually deliver at least double that to them? So maybe there's like 4,000 going to them.
Yeah, that's
That'd
great.
be good,
Well,
right?
this is what I'd been struggling with this week. One of my blockages that I was having in my thinking was, you know, do I just make money from my photography and for my first project with the conservation, raise money instead of making money from it and that sort of relationship? I wasn't sure. Yeah,
Right.
how to structure.
So what if you were to have something which was not just you just having the money, but you being employed by a company which you set up, which is called Changing Spots, which are a series of photography books
Sure.
that people would actually be able to be involved in knowing how to support something. Like you could have a photography book specifically for these guys that would actually bring out the awareness of them, but at the same time share and be amazing photos because your photography is amazing.
Yeah.
But at the same time as doing that and raise that awareness and raise some extra money for them is something which is bringing people's stories in to the whole concept of Changing Spots, which is the idea that when we ourselves realize, I mean, like, we all know when it comes to big cats, or maybe we don't all know, but when it comes to big cats, they are one of the most endangered species in the world. And one of the biggest reasons they are is that they're one of the few animals that are still requiring free range to move. So for example, tigers especially need so much space to go and travel from one place to another, right? So there's an element which is kind of like a metaphorical thing about how we're in a world where we talk about more freedoms, but there are actual species of animals that we are in danger of losing because we're actually taking away a lot of that ability to be mobile and to be free. And if you take that idea of Changing Spots and say, do yourself a favor, support the big cats and at the same time, support yourself. Right? And what does it mean to live a life which is more like a tiger or a lion compared to living a life which is like a domesticated cat? What's the difference of that for a person, right?
Yeah.
You can see how people can actually have stories about what happened when they opened up the freedom of themselves and who they wanted to be. And that becomes part of the inspirational story that you're giving. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to anything, no one wants to give money to anything just out of pity.
Yeah.
But they'll give it out of inspiration.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's really great. Yeah.
So imagine you did something like that. I'm just giving it as an example. Could you see that there could be a way that Emma could basically raise herself some money which could go to publishing the first book, have her a business going, that would also give back regularly, where the book itself would give back more, and at the same time have $4,000 which goes towards them, where you can find out how that's going to support them as well, and also fund her trip to go out there on the cheetah experience because she's taking a group of people with her.
Yeah, this
Would
is
that be
what
cool?
John mentioned that to me as well, and it's really something I could do.
Yeah. Just a matter of interest, just in the group here, how much do you think people would be willing to pay for an experience, which is maybe for a week, let's say, to go to South Africa to really learn more about the cheetahs specifically, but at the same time about big cat conservation, and also about their own ability to be able to be freer in the way that they're living their lives. So there's actually almost like a transformational program they can be running and the end point of it is a photographic album, and you're bringing photography and capturing the essence of the moment all as part of that as well. Any thoughts? Just you think 5,000? How much? What do you reckon? You reckon between 4 and 6. So you think around that number would be for about 6,000? Yeah. Is this including airfares, or is this? Do you think airfares is included in that, or it's about 2,000? So would you say you need to take that off, or would you pay that extra? What do you reckon? 3 without, and then with the 2,000, it's 5,000, something like that. Probably something like that, right? Now here's the point: if you were to do something like that,
okay,
and you said, well, is 3,000 the right number? You don't have to say right this moment, but you say, let's just start as a starting point. If it was the right number, and if we were to take what we're saying here, which is the part that says on a promotion, what's the irresistible offer? What's the budget you're redirecting? Well, it's partly budgets that people are putting aside for training and so on, but basically at the same time, it really is kind of like travel budget as well, because it's a trip. What the problem you're solving or solution superior, it's like, well, we're going to give people a better reason to come with us and to be really involved in something which is transformational. And we're going to get out there to share this as something transformational. We're going to say that out of the 3,000, because when we actually break it down, your effectively price promotion, which we will be getting more onto, let's say 20% of that is going towards marketing, which means that you can then attract people with databases and lists to say, yeah, if I send someone on this, then there's going to be basically $600 that I could be getting as commission basically for just sending someone on this thing, right? So people go, well, great, that's worth me sending out to my list, right? Who knows what might happen, and there'll be something coming out of it. You got $2,400 left over. You could be the one that conducts it yourself. You could say, well, out of the $2,400 for each of these, when I look at the actual cost on the ground for a week, especially
I think it's about $400 to stay or to do the volunteering for a week.
$400?
Okay, yeah.
400? Yeah.
Oh, awesome, yeah.
Let's say you got 400 in there, right? And you can work around with the numbers, but now you're down to 2,000. Okay? You could say, well, I'm looking for 6,000. I need 3 people.
Okay.
If you can find 3 people on that who are willing to pay 3,000 to come with you, be on this, be part of the whole production of the first book, be part of contributing, where they know that 2/3 of all that money already is going to the charity. The other third is going towards you supporting with basically the book and everything. That's all part of that, right?
Yeah.
You bring 1 extra person in, so now you're up to 4. You've now paid for your own airfare and your flight, and you've got some money to actually set up the website and everything like that.
Yeah.
You bring in 5 people, and you've now got a really nice reserve and building where you're at. You get between 3 and 5, you'll be fine. And basically, if you actually said, well, then I'm going to aim for 6 people, and I'm going to start focusing now, what do I need to get to 6 people? Because even if I get 3, I'll be okay.
Okay.
And then you say, well, if I had to go for 6 people, what's my guess as to what will happen? Well, let's imagine that I'm going to have 6 people that are going to sign up, right? And I'm going to basically say, well, for 6 people to sign up, I'm probably going to have at least like 12 people who are really interested, right? And I'm going to be in conversation with 12 people that are really interested.
Yep.
For me to get 12 that are really interested, well, I reckon on one hand, I'm going to basically probably have somewhere like, let's say, 4 people, who are going to come from all of my kind of lists and kind of like mailing out to people and stuff like that. I'll find some affiliates and so on. I may need to get to 4,000 people in order to get to 4.
Yep.
So who has 4,000 people I can get to?
Yeah.
I may have basically 4 people that I could find that are just from personal network. So people where I'm saying, hey, do you know what people, I'll get lists, and maybe out of the personal network, if I can just find, 40 names of people that someone's saying, this is someone you should speak to, maybe out of 40, I can find 4 people there as well. And then maybe there's the third group where I'm actually saying, well, if I can just, get connected into people that really like big cats, right, or into conservation. I'm sure there's like groups already in Australia. There's already kind of like groups around the world that are like on Facebook and so on I can get to. Yeah. Say, hey guys, who wants to be part of this, right? And maybe, because I don't know these people, as long as they've got a list of somewhere like 40,000 Facebook followers, someone this, maybe I'll find 4 people there as well.
Yeah.
And they'll come on board too. I've now got 12 people out of these 3 things I do. And if I get those 12, he'll be here. And here's the point. Now all you're doing is saying, well, how much of this I'm going to test this week? How much of this will I test next week? Am I testing 3 of these different things and trying the first 1,000 people? What's happening? You know, maybe someone here can send out a list, an email of the first one. We'll try for 1,000. What was the result? It's all test and measure, and between now and 4 weeks, you can learn so much by test, measure, test, measure, test, measure, where you get better and better. And some of these things work, some of them won't. But before you know it, you've got down to something which is really quite simple to do. And you've got yourself a flight to South Africa, meeting the cheetahs.
Well, it's much more inspiring to look at it that way, because I was feeling a bit conflicted with, okay, well, you know, I'll do the bread and butter with photography,
right,
and then managing my time with that,
Always, 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 like, how do I do one thing well? Not how to do lots of things. How to do one thing well. You can do lots of things later and multitask when each thing is working. But start by just focusing on one thing that can really create flow for you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everyone? Let's give everyone a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
So let's just open this up for any immediate questions that come out, because this is the kind of process which didn't take very long at all, but it's the kind of process that if we all go through that, we're all going to find something very simple and straightforward that actually allows us to do our job a whole lot more effectively, and life gets a whole lot easier. Ursula, yeah.
Before I came to Bali, an acquaintance of mine asked me to help him find a group of like-minded people to buy his property, which is a 17-acre property in northwest Sydney, which is absolutely stunning. And I'm just wondering how I should go about it, because that could help me get to the next level quickly.
So
I'm on Orange now, so, you know.
So first things first, right? At foundation level,
yes,
every opportunity is a shovel. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit like you saying, someone gave me this beautiful spade, 17-acre property. What should I do with it?
No,
right?
It's a 17-hectare property.
Yeah, 17
which he has just subdivided into 17 blocks.
Yeah, it's a spade which could be 17 spades.
Yeah.
17 spades, right? It's like, look, I've got these spades.
So he's looking.
What shall I do for these spades?
Yeah.
And I'll say, well, you're in the desert. This has nothing to do with what you do with a spade, because all you can do with a spade is dig. And if you dig in the desert, so you got to get to a river.
Yeah.
Once you get to the river, the spade may be useful, but you'll probably find at the river there's spades there already that they're already using. So leave the spade behind. Because what happens is we get caught up when we are looking for extra things to happen with opportunities that come our way. Why is it that at infrared level we get opportunities? Because people see we have time in our hands, or appear to have time in our hands, or they may be looking to help and support. Can you help me with this or help me with that? So you end up with an opportunity. It's like, oh, this is a good opportunity. And then you go out with that opportunity to say, what can I do with this? Never start with the opportunity ever. Because that's the biggest danger, is you think there's value in the opportunity. There's no value in a 17-acre property. If you had someone who wanted to buy a 1-acre property from you, you could go down to the real estate agent today and find a whole bunch of 1-acre properties and do the deal with the person who's got the money, and you're done. So at the moment, you're like, well, I've got this spade which actually can dig, but I've got no flow, and so it's like, forget about the spade, leave it behind. Go and say, well, do you even want to be in the property market? Is that even where you want to be? Is that where you want to aim for? And if you go, actually, it's not, I want to do something totally different, then forget about it, right? There's millions of opportunities every day. It just happens he physically came to you with that opportunity, all right? And if you think about it that way, that we're abundant in opportunities, you can go to a real estate magazine, pick it up, and imagine every one of those people showing up in front of you saying, I've got this opportunity for this property, can you sell it for me? And you've got to ask yourself at that point, well, given that they haven't all come to me, would I want them all to come to me? And would that actually help me if I had 100 of these, or 17 or 1? Or actually, has it got nothing to do with any of this? It has to do with where I'm heading. So let me ask you that question. I know that you've been challenged for exactly the reason that you've got a business or had a business which in itself is lack, right? I mean, that's the problem with a lot of business. In debt collection, it's like collecting money, finding different ways. The people you're going to attract are people who are already in lack. So as a result, it's like, unless I can find more people in lack and persuade them this is even good to do, I haven't got any business. So you've got to go chasing the business the whole time. If you switch it all around and come from a place of abundance, which is, if I could live the life I want to live, doing the things that I really could see myself being of most value, from your pathway so far since you got here, what would be your best guess today of what Ursula 3.0 looks like 5 years from now?
Well, I have let go of that.
Yeah. Sure. So that's what you're not going to do. What's your best idea of what you will be?
My best idea is that definitely
Okay? Yep. Okay. So it will be something to do with holistic curriculums. Are there people out there that you already look at and think, I love what they do? Okay. Right. Yep. Right. Okay, so that's one. Do you have a second example? Of a river, a group of people or a movement or a company or an individual that's doing something you go, wow, I love what they're doing and what they're involved in right now. So here's the key thing. Identity, which is the first thing, is about basically saying, well, what are there's an element here, which is what tends to happen when we are at the level where it's like, well, what could I be doing? Where curiosity hasn't yet taken over. So what's happening is we're saying, well, who do I know? What do I know? So you've done exactly that. You said, well, I know Roger and I know Green School. There it is, done. So the biggest obstacle to knowledge, as I said on the very first day, is the biggest obstacle to progress is the illusion of knowledge. It's like, well, I know it now, that's it. But what if you were to go out shopping for shoes? If you're in a rush, you might just go out, find the first pair of shoes you could find, put them on, and then you're done. But if you really, really wanted to make it a super duper, you're going for a super special meal, super special party, you want it to be the best, you might even put a whole afternoon aside for the shoes. And what you probably would do is instead of going to the first shop and buying the first set of shoes, is you'd probably go look at a couple of different shops. And you'd probably look for a couple of different sets of shoes. And what would happen is that you would end up basically saying, well, here's one, and here's another, and now I'm actually choosing a number of things. And this is basically convergent, divergent process of decision making, which all entrepreneurs, when they get good at this, is the process of self-discovery, all right? Why? Because by them saying, I'm gonna come up with 10 different things, it first of all forces you to be curious. Because for most of us, I don't know how to find 10 things. Well, if you were to find 10, how would you find them? Well, I'd probably go speak to some people. Well, what really inspires you when it comes to the holistic side of things? What are the people you put up there and go, wow, these guys are amazing? Do they have a website? Can I go have a look at what they're up to, what they're doing? If I was to go out and actually Google, like people out there who are interested in holistic health, or what would show up? Because probably the people Googling are the ones that would find these ones, and they're obviously the most successful and positive. When I go and look at them, which ones do I actually really like and why do I like them? And something starts to happen. You start to actually create a list, which is the most important list, is the core to who you are, which is basically a list of criteria of why you're choosing these people. You might say, because I have a lot to give for them, because my background, I've done this and this and this and this. Because they're making a difference in the world in a way that I truly believe in, and this is why. You're starting to articulate the criteria as to why you're choosing them. Now, you wouldn't know that when you look at one. It's like, well, the criteria is I know Roger and I know Green School. That's not a good enough criteria because but wait a minute, it's not the criteria because I met this other person. It's nothing to do with Roger, nothing to do with Green School, but actually it's got something in common. What has it got in common? If you sit down on your own and try and figure out, it's very difficult. But when you've got others to look at, you go, oh my goodness, I'm actually even more excited about that one than this one. I wonder why that is. So the next step that happens is when you get this, and then you've got to say, now that I've got 10 that I quite like, and I'm clearly not going to do 10, I'm going to narrow it down to 3. Now, something even more interesting happens when you narrow it down to 3, which is now you've got 3 that you're going to choose from that you're going to work with. And you start finding more criteria showing up as to why you cut some of these out. Well, that one's not green enough, right? Or, well, that one is just too much hard work and is in another country. I want something that's local in Australia. You wouldn't even know that until you let your body take over on this and you start thinking, oh, this is why, this is this. And you're now doing something more and more natural where it's like, these are my criteria. You end up at a point where you can go to anyone in this room and say, guys, I am going to be working with a company that has this and this and this and this and this. And people go, I know the perfect company for you. And they might not even been thinking about it before, and it will be, because you've now got to really clear what you're doing or what you want to be doing, right? Once you've got that and you've got those 3, the next step, which is, well, how could I, just in the same way that Emma has got, when I first met Emma, she wasn't talking about the cheetahs. We, in fact, we weren't talking about big cats at that point, but that all came part of it. Then now she's gone out looking and she's like, that's the one I want to work with. And suddenly it's like, hey, we've got something specific we can work on now. So when you do the same thing, which won't take a week, it might take less, but you go, and by the way, anyone else here who's also struggling with watches, I know I need to connect with someone or something, what could it be? The biggest challenge you're going to have is the fact that you've limited the choices to too little, and you're not even clear why it's that choice. So if you actually met with them, you couldn't even articulate why you want to work with them. And so they're thinking, well, it just looks like you want to work with me because I'm convenient. Is there a bigger reason for that? And if there is, what's your proposal of how you're going to add value? And you're going to go, well, I know how I'm going to add value because I've already thought it through, because all this comes out in your thinking, right? So this, remember what he said on the first day, this is about listening actively. This is about think it, ink it, do it, review it. It's about putting it down, looking at it, seeing what it's like, coming back to it again, and just letting it settle, right? So this whole idea now is you got down to 3, and from that 3, the next part is how would I actually deliver value to them? Often it will be in partnership with them. Sometimes it will be working for them or with them. It may even include someone in this room that's got a business. It may even include me. But it will be there, but you'll be so much clearer and so much more certain, I want to work with you for this reason. And I'd be able to test you. I'd be able to say, well, why would you want to work with me when you actually could work with One Retreat Hotels, which actually has a whole bunch of holistic things here? And you go, well, I know I don't want to do that because, and you'd be able to say, I'm like, oh, you've really through, right? And without that, you'll be wavering all over the place, but with it, it'll become clearer and clearer. You turn your spoon into a knife. Most of us are trying to cut through life with a spoon and it doesn't work. But the moment you get precise and clear, it happens because you're fine-tuning as you go. Does that make sense? Yeah? Does that make sense to everybody? The most important thing for Ursula right now is the clarity of thinking not on what she's going to do yet, but why she's doing it, what the criteria by which she's actually making choices. And you'll be able to go to any single billionaire in the world, and they can make decisions like that because they are so clear in their criteria of why they're choosing certain things. Like when, Warren Buffett gets asked like, how do you keep getting these how do you find these $1 billion deals that he gets? Like massive, huge, massive deals. How do you find these $1 billion deals? And his answer is, well, me and Charlie's the CEO. Me and Charlie, we'd sit by the phone, and once in a while, it's not the wrong number. it's like we just sit and wait for it to ring. And the reason he can do that is because he's made it very, very clear to everyone out there, we got money. We want to buy into a company, but number one, the company has to be a company which is 3 billion or more in size in terms of what we can invest in. It has to be a company which is easy to understand, which means that it's not some high-tech thing or something we don't understand. It needs to be a company which is either family-run or is a structure that we can actually really add value into that structure to add more value into it. And it's got to be a company that we can see is still going to be around selling the same things in 100 years from now. That's it. That's its criteria. And so the only people that call them up are people who actually are fitting that criteria. And for most of us, because we don't have a criteria, I have a criteria. My criteria is really simple, and it's one that I set up, which is attracting new things to me now than I had 5 years ago, because I reset my criteria. My criteria is that any business I'm involved in has to be involved in environment and education and entrepreneurship. That's it. So anything I do is fitting into that. And it's like, when someone says, why, Roger? Why wouldn't you get involved with me in my car decor company? I mean, what's wrong with that? And I say, because it doesn't fit into these 3. He says, well, why does it need to fit in that 3? I said, because I personally see that I have a vision and a mission for my life, which is that I can add some value to the next generation in the short time I have left here. And the way I see it is that basically everything is going to come down to 3 things that I think I can impact. One is what we're showing up in, which is our environment. And I think that there's a whole group of people focusing at the environment that if we actually were thinking more about how we're showing up in it, we can improve what it looks like. So that might show up in terms of environmental concerns. It might show up in how I design a resort. But I'm designing environments because I think that's the starting point of everything, and I want to be around people like that. But when you show up in something, I also know that number 2, you got to make something of what you're showing up in. You got to figure out what it's all about, and that's where education comes in. So I'm really interested in how people are looking at the environments they're in differently and how they're actually processing that information. So I'm interested in education. That includes schools, but it also includes adult education. It includes how we're processing that. But most importantly, if that's all it was, we'd just be there understanding our environment and then making the most of it. I want us to do something with this, and that's where entrepreneurship comes in, because that's how we can actually make more with less. And for me, it's about not just showing up in an environment, the right environment. It's not about just getting educated into it. It's about entrepreneurship, doing something to make it a better environment and a better place for us in the future. That's me, that's my life, that's what I do. I'm 100% clear on it, not because I just woke up with it one day, but I had an inkling of where it was, and I went out and instead of saying, well, would I want to work with this business? Would I want to work with that business? What is it that's really driving me to the point where I can then articulate it in a way that anyone who listens to that goes, well, fair enough, he's got his path, he knows where he's going. At least I know if something shows up that's in that field, I can call Roger and he's not going to say no to it, because if it fits his criteria, he's going to be open to it. But I'm not going to waste some time on anything that doesn't fit in that criteria. Does that make sense for everyone? Yeah. So clarity and crystal clarity is everything on this. And it doesn't come just overnight, it comes by that practice. It's all the yoga, right? Practice of stepping into it as well. Okay, guys, I'm complete. I've gone a little over time, as always, but I'd like to complete with a little video. And it just brings us back to what I shared yesterday. It shares what we're sharing today, and it brings it all into one. And it's all about what I was sharing also on the very first day we were together, which is about water, and how water can be everything. So just watch this little video, which is from a guy who, it's an address to a university, and it was made some time ago, but basically, and you might have seen it, but I want to share it with you because it's just about the concept of water, the concept of meaning, the concept of these levels that we're going through, and something to really just think about as you're going through the rest of today. See if this works with our super new fast internet.
There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" The point of the fish story is merely that the most obvious, important realities are often the ones that are hardest to see and talk about. Stated as an English sentence, of course, this is just a banal platitude. But the fact is that in the day-to-day trenches of adult existence, banal platitudes can have a life or death importance. The plain fact is that you graduating seniors do not yet have any clue what day in, day out really means. There happen to be whole, large parts of adult American life that nobody talks about in commencement speeches. One such part involves boredom, routine, and petty frustration. The parents and older folks here will know all too well what I'm talking about. By way of example, let's say it's an average adult day, and you get up in the morning, go to your challenging white-collar college graduate job, and you work hard for 8 or 10 hours, and at the end of the day you're tired and somewhat stressed, and all you want is to go home and have a good supper and maybe unwind for an hour and then hit the sack early, because of course you have to get up the next day and do it all again. But then you remember there's no food at home. You haven't had time to shop this week because of your challenging job. And so now after work you have to get in your car and drive to the supermarket. It's the end of a work day, and the traffic is apt to be very bad. So getting to the store takes way longer than it should. And when you finally get there, the supermarket is very crowded, because of course it's the time of day when all the other people with jobs also try to squeeze in some grocery shopping. But you can't just get in and quickly out. You have to wander all over the huge, overlit store's confusing aisles to find the stuff you want. And you have to maneuver your junky cart through all these other tired, hurried people with carts, etc., cutting stuff out because it's a long ceremony. And eventually, you get all your supper supplies, except now it turns out there aren't enough checkout lanes open, even though it's the end of the day rush. So the checkout line is incredibly long, which is stupid and infuriating, but you can't take your frustration out on the frantic lady working the register, who is overworked at a job whose daily tedium and meaninglessness surpasses the imagination of any of us here at a prestigious college. But anyway, you finally get to the checkout line's front, and you pay for your food, and get told to have a nice day in a voice that is the absolute voice of death. And then you have to take your creepy, flimsy plastic bags of groceries in your cart with the one crazy wheel that pulls maddeningly to the left, all the way out through the crowded, bumpy, littery parking lot, and then you have to drive all the way home through slow, heavy, SUV-intensive rush hour traffic, etc. Everyone here has done this, of course, but it hasn't yet been part of you graduates' actual life routine, day after week, after month, after year. But it will be. And many more dreary, annoying, seemingly meaningless routines besides. But that is not the point. The point is that petty, frustrating crap like this is exactly where the work of choosing is going to come in. Because the traffic jams and crowded aisles and long checkout lines give me time to think. And if I don't make a conscious decision about how to think and what to pay attention to, I'm going to be pissed and miserable every time I have to shop. Because my natural default setting is the certainty that situations like this are really all about me. About my hungriness and my fatigue and my desire to just get home. And it's going to seem for all the world like everybody else is just in my way. And who are all these people in my way? And look at how repulsive most of them are, and how stupid and cow-like and dead-eyed and non-human they seem in the checkout line. Or at how annoying and rude it is that people are talking loudly on cell phones in the middle of the line. and look at how deeply, personally unfair this is. If I choose to think this way in the store and on the freeway, fine. Lots of us do. Except thinking this way tends to be so easy and automatic that it doesn't have to be a choice. It is my natural default setting. It's the automatic way that I experience the boring, frustrating, crowded parts of adult life when I'm operating center of the world, and that my immediate needs and feelings are what should determine the world's priorities. The thing is that, of course, there are totally different ways to think about these kinds of situations. In this traffic, all these vehicles stuck and idling in my way, it's not impossible that some of these people in SUVs have been in horrible auto accidents in the past, and now find driving so terrifying that their therapist has all but ordered them to get a huge, heavy SUV so they can feel safe enough to drive. Or I can choose to force myself to consider the likelihood that everyone else in the supermarket's checkout line is just as bored and frustrated as I am, and that some of these people probably have much harder, more tedious or painful lives than I do. Again, please don't think I'm giving you moral advice, or that I'm saying you're supposed to think this way, or that anyone expects you to just automatically do it, because it's hard. It takes will and effort, and if you are like me, some days you won't be able to do it, or you just flat out won't want to. But most days, if you're aware enough to give yourself a choice, you can choose to look differently at this fat, dead-eyed, over-made-up lady who just screamed at her kid in the checkout line. Maybe she's not usually like this. Maybe she's been up 3 straight nights holding the hand of her husband who's dying of bone cancer. Or maybe this very lady is the low-wage clerk at the motor vehicles department who just yesterday helped your spouse resolve a horrific, infuriating red tape problem through some small act of bureaucratic kindness. Of course, none of this is likely, but it's also not impossible. It just depends what you want to consider. If you're automatically sure that you know what reality is and who and what is really important, if you want to operate on your default setting, then you, like me, probably won't consider possibilities that aren't annoying and miserable. But if you've really learned how to think, how to pay attention, then you will know you have other options. It will actually be within your power to experience a crowded, hot, slow, consumer hell-type situation as not only meaningful, but sacred, on fire with the same force that lit the stars. Love, fellowship, the mystical oneness of all things deep down. Not that that mystical stuff's necessarily true. The only thing that's capital T true is that you get to decide how you're going to try to see it. This, I submit, is the freedom of real education, of learning how to be well-adjusted. You get to consciously decide what has meaning and what doesn't. That is real freedom. That is being educated and understanding how to think. The alternative is unconsciousness, the default setting, the rat race, the constant gnawing sense of having had and lost some infinite thing. I know that this stuff probably doesn't sound fun and breezy or grandly inspirational the way a commencement speech is supposed to sound. What it is, as far as I can see, is the capital T truth with a whole lot of rhetorical niceties stripped away. You are, of course, free to think of it whatever you wish. But please don't just dismiss it as some finger-wagging Dr. Laura sermon. None of this stuff is really about morality or religion or dogma or big fancy questions of life after death. The capital T truth is about life before death. It is about the real value of a real education, which has almost nothing to do with knowledge and everything to do with simple awareness. Awareness of what is so real and essential, so hidden in plain sight all around us all the time, that we have to keep reminding ourselves over and over, this is water. This is water.
So there's another one of everything at iLAB, which is about how you change from a circumstance like showing up in a traffic jam every day. But there's a deeper element, which is how whatever circumstance you show up at, even if it's going back to a traffic jam, it's what you make of it when you're there as the actor and the director, and the awareness you have of it, which can make every moment perfect. It is about awareness. But it would be wrong of me to finish without a final word from the master, someone who talked about water not being something that we're in, but going back to the witness being the thing that we are. So my final little video for this day is from none other than...
Some lines there express your philosophy. I don't know if you remember them or not.
Oh, I remember that. I
Let's
said,
hear.
this is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Thank you very much for this morning. Thank you, everyone.